Let's get chilly. Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
And we are recapping week 1 for both Minnesota professional ultimate Frisbee teams. Both of the Minnesota Wind Chill and Minnesota Strike kicked off their seasons. And it was great to be back watching Frisbee again.
Oh, yeah. Good weekend for sure. Weather wasn't all that great, but definitely fun to be able to watch them play again.
Yeah, it was a little chilly in Minnesota for that strike game.
Chilly in Pittsburgh, too.
Yeah,
All right. I'm going to kick off with some stall count trivia here. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get into it. So, geez, when you share your screen on Zoom these days, like a million things pop up. All right. Stall count trivia brought to you by Jeff Novak. Question 1. Who is the Strike's next opponent? A. New York Gridlock. B. Milwaukee Monarchs. C. Portland Rising. Or D. Indy Red.
And
Buzz.
B. It's B.
Jay, do you have a different answer?
No, it's definitely Milwaukee.
Correct. It is B. Milwaukee Monarchs at home at Seafoam Stadium on May 4th. So we'll see you there, Star Wars fans.
This Saturday.
That's right.
That's kind of
all
crazy.
right. Question 2. Who scored the first goal of the season for the Minnesota Wind Chill? A. Brian Vinoka. B. Matt Rader. C. Brett Bergmeyer. Or D. Tristan Van de Mortel. And this is who caught the first goal.
I'm buzzing in. That's my D.
Kane. You said Matt Rader?
No, D. D.
Oh, D.
As in
Tristan
Tristan Van de Mortel.
Jay, do you have an answer?
I mean, I wasn't watching the first half of the wind chill game, so I'm just gonna say something different. Let's go with Bert Bergmeyer.
It was D. Tristan Van de Mortel. Bonus doesn't even know who threw it. Doesn't want to make that guess.
That was Raider. No, that was Bevon.
I'm pretty sure it was Bevon. I honestly don't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure it was Bevon.
Someone fact check us on that.
Here's a fun question. I enjoyed this one. What was the net point differential for Minnesota this weekend? So between the Minnesota Wind Chill and Strike, the points scored minus the points scored against. If that question makes sense. Kane, go ahead.
Yes, D.
Jay?
Yeah, it's D.
Do you guys actually know that?
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah, that's D for real.
It's 1 by 7, lost by 3.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, you just knew the scores right out the bat. Yeah. 4. That's right. Good job. I enjoyed that question. I thought it was more of a unique.
That's a good question. Yeah,
that's a good one. I'm gonna start doing that now.
So that kind of kicks us off into our recap. So the Minnesota Wind Chill won by 7. Minnesota Strike did get their first loss in a year, as they lost by 4 or by 3 to Portland Rising. You two were at the game with the Strike. We all watched the Wind Chill game together at my house. Just quickly before we get into each team, like any general recaps, themes, takeaways?
I think the Wind Chill, they looked calm. They looked like put together on the field, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about that a little bit more later, but they looked like really poised, like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and I think the Strike, and again, we can just get into the Strike too. It was interesting to see slightly different play style from what they had last year. I think the chemistry of the team was definitely a factor, more so than I expected. Again, I think there's just enough turnover within the team that they worked well together. You could tell that, but there were just a few miscues and a few things where if they would have been more on the same page, I think that game could have swung the other way. But it was good to see them, both teams, like playing well. Like it wasn't like egregious mistakes. I think both teams they have bright futures, a bright season ahead. So
yeah, I was just gonna say for a first game of the season, I don't think either one was bad. If the strike had like played a bad game, but I think Portland just put up a really good first game. I think they just came out swinging, and I think that's sometimes hard to get up against, especially like you said, with a little bit of turnover. So I think, yeah, both the Winchell and the strike have enough of a season ahead that they can kind of kick it into gear and get some more stuff worked up.
Definitely, we did not see the strike ceiling by any means. That was not their best that they can be this season, which is hopeful. Um, and I will also say, just another factor, and I think this can be just us starting to talk about the strike. Uh, Portland Rising, they did already have a game this season too, so you know whether you want to factor that in or not, I think that's definitely a consideration. Um, they played against New York Gridlock, so I think that's a fair point against Minnesota. They're still kind of getting their legs underneath them this season. So
Yeah, I mean, if are we just
yeah,
sliding on talking about
let's get
it?
into strike now.
I
Yep.
do think that definitely plays a factor. I talked about it in my recap or my preview article a little bit about how like it really playing against a different team is so much different than scrimmaging against your own team.
Mhm.
You can practice and practice day after day, but once you're on the field playing a incredibly high intensity game against an unfamiliar opponent, it's different. What?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm nothing. I'm just seeing Jay and his head is like mushed in the
Oh,
middle.
yeah. Yeah. The headset's
Sorry.
blended in with like the
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
No, I got it. No,
Um,
I do think that like having a few games to play against other teams does give you some time to like warm up, I guess. And so
It's a different game altogether.
it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially for like a lot of the players that have had a little bit of an off season or players that haven't played at this level before, that
Mhm.
first game, I'm not saying it catches you off guard, but like can be a little
It's
jolt sometimes.
yeah,
So,
you're definitely learning.
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
also
they
just the
go ahead.
a bit about that as well as what kind of what Alicia Carr was saying in that post game interview, posted on our Instagram. Go check it out. What she was saying during that was expect something different next week. Like they weren't playing their peak. They know they weren't. They like she recognized that. I think the whole team recognized that, and they know like these are the kinks we're going to be working out. These are the things we're going to be working on. And I do think like Portland already having that one game advantage. I don't know if they won the game against the
They
Gridlock
didn't.
or not.
They lost.
Yeah. But like they had the chance to work out some of those kinks as well. They had the chance to see, oh, this is what we needed to work well. This is what worked well.
Mhm.
This is what we need to fix. And I do think that gave them an advantage over the strike.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, like this was by no means the strike ceiling. This is not the best that they'll ever play this season, and that is a good thing. Like we did not see the best version of this team, and we did see a very good version of this team still, which is really cool to see. They played a very good game, and it was. I never
Yeah.
felt like when I was sorry.
No, you good.
Oh, okay. When I was kind of watching, because I wasn't at the game, but I got to watch the broadcast afterwards. I never, though I knew the outcome of the game, I never was like, oh man, I can't believe we're losing by 3. Like I was like, oh yeah, they can get back into this, and like you kind of know what the outcome is, so it's like, but they don't. But I was surprised that they were losing the whole time just by the way they were playing,
Right.
which is a
I
good
think
thing.
that's what I was. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Oh my gosh.
You're good.
I think the hustle was there the whole time for sure, and that's what I was thinking. Like with the third quarter, I remember telling Jay, I was like, it's like 5 minutes left. We were down by 2, and like we just got like a break or something. Like no, we just got like an offensive point. I'm like, okay, look at that. Like we're making a
Mhm.
comeback, and so I think like Portland really did just fire on all like cylinders. They played a really good game, and I think we gotta like give credit to them for sure. But like the strike were there was one point where there were like 4 separate layout attempts for a block, and there was another point where there were like 3. Like the strike were, as I always say, push your body on the line for the disc. They were doing that for sure, and so I don't
Yeah,
think the loss came from like a lack of
effort.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
another,
It was still a
like,
good game for sure.
yeah,
So
think another putting your body on the line for the disc. There were some throws from the strike that I thought, oh man, that's that's for sure going to be dropped. There's like no way they're going to get that. And like every time it was caught, or if it wasn't caught, they were laying out and making it look much closer than I imagined it could have possibly been. Like there were plays that I was not expecting them to even come close to making that they came very close to making. So it was just a few overthrown discs, like a few underthrown discs,
Mm.
that easily, like that's a strike win easily if those are a little bit cleaner.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
a very fast team, which like the Strike definitely have that to their advantage that they are fast. Um, and as we know, Seafoam Stadium, it's windy and it's a weird wind, and like the upwind side of the field, you could definitely tell they're throwing upwind, where like that same throw going downwind just was it was different, and like
Right.
there were a couple hammers that were thrown on each side. And you could just see like, oh, that one's floating a little bit more. Like, hey, that was probably not a great look because it just didn't fly like you wanted it to. And yeah, so it's just a
Yeah.
matter of not chance, I guess, but don't want to say that, but yeah, an elemental chance as well. But
Either
okay.
way, a good game. Lots of good plays. There was one hammer that I like. You were asking for highlights before.
Mhm.
I completely forgot about this. It was like there was one hammer that the Portland Rising did, and I was like, oh, that was a cool hammer. I always like a good hammer for a point.
Yeah.
And then the next point, Mextroth
Sarah
got the disc.
Mexroth, yeah.
Yeah, just like that cross field. I was like, that was crazy. I was like freaking out. So
Yeah.
definitely a lot of like good plays. Like the if this game were to be like a rematch today, I feel like we would walk away with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a fair bet. Jay, do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of the different play styles that we saw the Strike taking on? You kind of mentioned it in your Alicia Carr interview. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so during the game, I think I was thinking about mostly on defense. There were these two defensive styles where it was, one was playing like not very layout heavy. They weren't bidding for every disc to block it. They're, forcing handlers to make a whole bunch of reset passes, um, to be taking shorter passes. They weren't giving up deep looks. And I don't think that stopped every point. And obviously you're never going to stop every point. That's just
Mhm.
not realistic. But I do think like that's where a lot of Portland, they kind of forced a lot of unforced errors from Portland, if that makes any sense. Like, you throw 200 discs, you're probably going to drop it once. Even it's
Right,
unforced, but it's, if you're
right.
forcing a lot of
Statistically,
passes, you're probably going to drop one here and there. And I think that's what that sort of like slower, more methodical play style was. Um, then we also did see that really fast pace, like laying out for just about any pass that was close. Like if they thought they could get it, they were going for it. And a lot of
Mhm.
times it worked. And that was really fun to see. Um, and then it was interesting because I thought the offense played the same way. But what Alicia Carr was saying was basically that the offense, it's if we see that look, we're quickly taking it and then we're going to the next one if it's there as well.
Mm.
I think you actually have a clip to show of basically just that.
Yes.
But she also mentioned how like if those looks aren't there, then we're okay with taking those reset passes. We're okay with making those. We're confident in our handlers. We're confident in our cutters.
Hmm.
And I think we see a lot of that in the game as well. So I think it was interesting that the offense, the lines weren't different. It was just how they read the game. And the defense was more like this is just this defensive line's play style and that defensive line play style.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. I think that's that more patient play style too is I think reminiscent of last year. I mean, we all kept bringing it up last year of how I think their handlers were very strong and we're very confident in those resets and just like working around defenders to get that deep look. Um, and just kind of to see that carry over to this season is pretty cool. We know that it worked, and I think it'll work again if they can just execute with that precision and the confidence again. So, yeah, you mentioned a couple clips. I do have a few clips about kind of that talking point. I have to see. It doesn't really matter, I guess, which order I go through, but I will share my screen. So another um, call out player that we want to give credit to is Emma Poyer, who just like also was incredibly poignant on the field. I think she made her presence known. Um, I just want to point out if you're watching on YouTube, check out the screen. If you're listening on Spotify, I'll just read this off. This line, I think, is just like a deadly line. So we're set with Steph Wood from left to right, Steph Wood, Steph Rupp, Bacon rather, sorry. Daly, Byers, Poyer, and Mextroth, which is just like deadly. If I see that on the starting seven, like, forget about it. Um, as I play this, I think it's this first clip I'm playing. I'm gonna be real. I don't remember. Let's just play this clip. Watch. I want to point out Poyer, but watch the entire offense and just like their chemistry as they cut and as they move the disc around, because I think it's very prevalent of how the game went. Um, so there goes the poll. Emma Poyer is gonna be cutting now deep to the top of the screen, and you don't see her again until the end of the point. So you see the handlers there. There's a big look to Poyer into the end zone for the goal. I'm gonna go back a little bit because the handlers, as Jay was talking about, saw the opportunity to hit the break side, move the disc quickly, which opened up that opportunity for Poyer. Like they wasted no time um, moving this disc downfield. And if you guys want to add anything as we watch this clip again, definitely feel free if you need me to pause it. But we're just gonna watch this
I'd
play
say
out too.
maybe slow it down a little bit, like playback speed a little slower.
Oh, duh. I was like, I can't slow it down. Settings, playback speed, 0.5 or 7.5?
Man, I don't know.
0.75.
0.75.
All right, all right.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay.
No, because I remember we're gonna talk about my post game interview now. When I was talking to Poyer afterwards about just finding opportunity on the field, I know she had mentioned how they're always looking to create opportunity, and what you to your point earlier about how the handlers are very comfortable with looking to each other or looking for those continuations. I
Mm.
think one thing that like when you look at the field, it's a very big field. You have to create a lot of opportunity, and that takes a lot of time sometimes to like, get all the pieces moving. And so one thing about the strike cutters that is really interesting is that they're not afraid to take the undercut and then come and create that opportunity for the next cutter. So a lot of times you'll see handler movement and only handler movement, but it feels like the strike is really good at kind of weaving in a cutter every now and then to get a little bit extra forward momentum. And so, I mean, I'm not saying on this point for sure, but
No, you're giving a preview for the next clip for sure.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind as we're gonna watch this clip one more time. Keep that thought because that's exactly what Poyer does in the next point too. But yeah, I think they do a great job, like you're saying, Kane, like using the pieces they have. So we got that break right away.
right, like look at that. Okay, see
Yeah,
how,
Mextroth
Mextroth
does just come
comes.
back in.
yeah,
Yeah,
But I also think to what Kane was saying about it taking time, like you said right away, Poyer gets off your screen and then
yeah,
you don't see her again until she's catching the disc in the end zone. She sees, I think realistically, she sees this play unfolding and is thinking, okay, well now I can set up deep. She's watching this happen and she knows this is happening quickly. I need to get deep. And then she
right.
does. Like
And
she
like to
sees
be
that
fair,
opportunity.
exactly. Like we don't know what she's doing off screen, but right, we can kind of put together. She's reading the field, she's reading the defenders and where the disc is. And when Mextroth cuts under, she's going deep. Like immediately, boom. And Mextroth just turns around, basically looks and doesn't even hesitate. Like it's not even a question for Mextroth, which is key to that play and that speed of play is like
right,
once Poyer cuts, that throw is off.
right. Because it's like if you do hesitate on that, that defender can get in there in that little window, but
Yeah, yeah,
you don't let them have that window then basically, and then you score. So.
yeah. Okay, and then this next clip is definitely more reminiscent of that too, of how these unders, especially from Poyer, if you're watching Poyer, she'll mostly be at the bottom of the screen in this clip. Um, Again, just does a very good job recognizing where the disc is and making the cuts necessary to get it moving again. So
Mhm.
here's Poyer at the bottom of the screen. Uh, I'm not going to annotate too much here, but this isn't 0.75. That's why everyone looks like they're moving through molasses. So a nice around to Rupp. And then Poyer's going to come under here. Nice little slide catch. And that's not the first cut, or that's not the last cut she's going to make like that. I'll say,
Mhm.
spoiler alert. Just keep watching her as she's moving down the field. And she knows exactly her role of cutting out and then going back under right away.
And there she is
And that
again.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then she half stands and flicks it like for the hockey assist. It's just
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's a great flow of the disc, I think. It worked really well. I think that like again, if we see that as their play style, everyone knowing where the disc is, what their role is, I think the Strike
Mhm.
have got it made this year.
One
Yeah. I also
thing that I just noticed in that clip that I want to call out real quick is I don't know if you guys noticed, but the undercut that she made ended up kind of fading on the break side a little bit so that the disc wouldn't end up getting pushed more and more to the sideline. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that's like super important, especially for bringing it down the field, because if you set yourself up on the sideline too early on, and it's really hard to get out of that. So I think, again, kind of that idea of creating opportunity, it's using the whole field, even when you're being forced on that sideline there.
Right. Yeah, you're creating more space. You're manufacturing that space
Right.
as you need to. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
want to
sure.
talk a bit again about Poyer. A standout game. I mean, Kane and I were talking about it at the game when we were watching. We were like, we need to get a post game interview with Poyer. We were like, that's the like every time she was on the field, she was like integral to the play. Even in that last clip we saw her. I mean, pretty much save two throws.
Yeah.
Like that, a couple of those throws easily could have been turfed, like hit the ground. Um, and she caught them both. And then again, you said like she did what from like basically one knee through
Yeah.
that for the hockey assist, and what was like essentially two steps away from being in, like two steps deeper, and that was for the
Yeah.
assist. Um, yeah, she was like definitely a player to be watching this season for the
And
remainder of their season.
both of those points were on the upwind side, weren't they? Wasn't that upwind? I think it was, if I recall.
I'm not
I mean, I
sure.
guess
I'm not
I
on the
always
field. I'm
forget how
not.
the
I don't know
stupid
which
wind
way
goes there.
the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, I think that's the case, but I could be wrong. But anything else on the strike? Do you want to do looking ahead, the forecast now, or do we do that at the end?
Let's
I think
do that
we'll do it
again.
at the end.
Yeah.
At the end. All right. Do you want to move on to the wind chill? Any last thoughts on the strike? All right. The Minnesota wind chill. They put the win in wind chill. They got their first win. It was on the road at Pittsburgh for the first time, evidently, since before 2020. Is that right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
I,
Like
2019 was the last
2018
time
or
that.
something like that. Yeah.
I hadn't even realized that. Like, it never, I just assumed they had always played in Pittsburgh, and I just like, oh, yeah, they're in Pittsburgh this weekend. But no, that's an interesting, though, factor. Um,
Well, they
that
usually
I
play
don't know.
Pittsburgh like once a season.
Right. And it's evidently been at home. But again, like, they usually do a good job, I think, at flipping the venues. But
Yeah,
I don't know if it really made a difference because it was a pretty like handy win. They won handily, I should say.
yeah,
Um, Jay, you had this point on our agenda here that you think the offense looked pretty calm. Can you speak more to that?
yeah. So they looked really poised. So when I was thinking last year about their offense, a lot of the players described the team as hungry, and the offense played like they were hungry, like they were always like really digging out that point. But this year, I mean, it might have just been um, like playing against Pittsburgh, a different team, different defensive style. But the offense looked like they weren't sweating anything. They looked like they were just, even when they like needed to like get a hold, even when they turned the disc over, they were just looking like, okay, this is what we got to do. They were. I didn't feel like they were rushing any throws. I felt
Mm,
like they were playing with perfect tempo, basically. Like they were, every throw was exactly when you would expect a throw to be. Every catch it looked easy. They looked like they were playing very calmly. If you told me they were breaking a sweat, I'd be a little surprised. Like they looked like they weren't even breaking a sweat out there. They looked like
yeah,
perfect. It was
yeah,
impressive.
yeah. They definitely. It was cool to see those newer pieces fitting in. I think the two like call outs I want to shout out is probably Greg Cousins and Matt Rader as those are the two biggest I think additions to the team. Obviously there were a lot of big additions, but specifically on offense, like it was cool to see excuse me, how many touches they got and I think the impact that they did make already early on. Like they kind of came as advertised, I think, in a good way. Um, they slotted right in and it was like they knew their role too. I guess. Like it wasn't like, oh yeah, we're still getting our feet underneath us, or oh, this is how the system operates. Like they slotted right in and got to work without disrupting too much of the rhythm.
Mhm. Almost
But
where I'm not trying to like speak against Pittsburgh, but obviously talking against the opponent of the game. I think Pittsburgh forced them to play a different game than they wanted to, it looked like. Because, I mean, Jay and I were talking about this at the game, or, well, no, wait, you and I were talking about this, where Pittsburgh just wasn't cutting, it felt like.
Yeah.
And so it felt like, especially on defense, and I guess maybe we could talk more about the offense. I guess I'm switching over to defense talk. It felt like the defense didn't really get a whole lot of opportunity to like create opportunity almost. But I do think the offense had a really strong game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know, maybe I just don't watch the Thunderbirds enough to speak to their style of play, but right, it seemed like the Cutters were really just not making moves. Like even they weren't really running a stack. Like I think they might have technically been, but it wasn't working and they didn't adjust and it just felt like they were very clumped the whole time. Like, oh yeah, we should probably cut and move into
Right.
some space here. And
Yeah.
it did the handlers like disservice. Like right.
It
And
felt
then the
very like
defense, yeah.
disorganized almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think part of that as well, aside from the Cutters looking lackluster, we can say,
Lost.
yeah, was I think Minnesota played pretty good handler defense because like they
Yeah.
were, I mean, look, when you're even if they're forcing a lot of passes back and forth between handlers, like what they had, I think Pittsburgh had twice as many passes as Minnesota at one point,
It was
more than twice
insane.
as many passes as Minnesota at one
So
point.
many.
Um, and I think that that's because if someone's open and you can't see them, they're not getting thrown to. So even if Pittsburgh is cutting, their
Mhm.
handlers can't see them. And I think part of it was that. Part of it was just that we were playing really tight to their handlers, and that they just because they were getting double teamed a lot. Their handlers, Pittsburgh handlers, were getting double teamed a lot. And I think Jeff, you had mentioned that Feldman had said that that was going to be a strategy they wanted to implement against Pittsburgh. Double
Mhm.
team their handlers. They can't really break out of that as well. And I feel like that means someone else is open and it was just the other handler. That's your open pass. Who you're going to throw it to, the other handler.
Yeah, I agree. And to their credit, like I think they did a fair job at moving the disc with that. Like they had 300 passes, and I don't know the completion rate, but like a good amount of them were completed still. Like they weren't dropping a lot, but they weren't moving the disc forward. Like how many times did we watch the game we were watching when they were in the red zone. The Thunderbirds had the disc in the red zone, and all of a sudden we're at like the half field, and it's like, how did this happen? But I think the defense did do a good job at pushing them, forcing them back, not letting Cutters get open. And at the same time, I don't think the Cutters really tried. Like, I'm just gonna be real with you. Like, I think our handler defense did a great job. I think our Cutter defense kind of got a week off, it looked like. I'm just gonna say it, Like, I don't know.
I think that's true as well. And I think the announcers also kind of knew it because while watching that game, the announcers were even mentioning like these guys don't look like themselves normally. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so I think the announcers kind of knew it. I don't know what it was about Pittsburgh sluggish week.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. And again, yeah, I don't watch the Thunderbirds enough to know what their style of play is. Like, I'm pretty ignorant to that, so I can't speculate, but it just didn't. I mean, it was a good first win for the Chill.
Yeah, I mean the Thunderbirds, as I've watched a few of their games. They do. I think they do average more passes than their opponents. They do play a lot more handler
Hmm.
to handler. Um,
Handler to Max Shepard in the end zone.
yeah, pretty much. Actually,
They
they
say
did
they
have
did
more
have that
hooks.
insane like full field, basically end zone to end zone, like
Yeah.
80-yard hook, which was
You
Yeah,
can expect at least
crazy.
one of those per Thunderbirds game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They'll
yeah.
play the most just like
It,
haphazard, weird, disjointed offense, and then they'll bust
Yeah.
out just like this crazy top 10 play. It's like, all right, that's great.
Yeah,
yeah,
that was sweet.
I do think that's also kind of the Thunderbird style. I wouldn't say like haphazard, like on their cutting. That again, their cutters were more lackluster than normal.
Mhm.
Usually they do cut a bit more. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty normal for the Thunderbirds is a lot of, handler to handler passes and then deep looks. And I think that when Minnesota was just preventing them from getting those deep looks. So when all you usually do is deep looks or deeper
Right.
looks, then well, you can't see them. So your cutters aren't cutting because they're used to just being running down the field to go get a deep look.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great analysis. That's better than what I could have come up with. Okay, I have a couple clips here. Because we're on Watch UFA TV, I did not have the handy like click the link to save this exact minute mark, but I have the first link if I can click the right button. Um, I just want to shout out. This is not necessarily like an analytical clip, but uh I'm assuming this is Sherry now. This is the Brandon Mattis bookends. First of all, like, yes, let's just watch the defense, first of all, because we were talking about that. Right now, Pittsburgh has the disc. They do a great job keeping these handlers close together. Um, and then Brandon Mattis gets a great defense, great block, and then huge end zone catch, and it doesn't count. 1 second. I gotta shut this volume off because it's in my headphones. Okay. So
That's
there's the
such a
block.
good block.
It's a great run through, and it gives him momentum to get to the end zone, wide open.
The
Great
over the
layout.
shoulder.
And
It looks
now he, I don't know if we can. You know what? I'm just gonna let you read his lips. I won't read his lips for you, but just see if you can read his lips, and we'll leave it at that. Uh, I'll start you off. Did we call a timeout? And then it's a 3-letter phrase after a 3-word phrase after that. But all that effort for a timeout, the goal did not count from Brandon Mattis, but it was incredible effort. Um, because made
You know
possible.
Feldman got an earful after that.
Yeah, he's never gonna live that one down.
No, that was such a good play.
It's vintage
Such a good
Mattis.
play. No,
Like,
seriously, that was prime Money Mattis right there.
yeah, it's a run,
That's why we
great run through
re-signed
D.
him for a 2-year contract right there.
Heck yeah,
Heck
it's a
yeah.
great run through D. I think again the handler defenders like set that up too. Like if we want to get a little analytical about it, like they made it possible because the handlers were kind of slowing it down a little bit, try to figure out what their strategy was. There's pressure on them, and they kind of got lackadaisical. And Brandon Mattis recognized that, stepped up and said, "Nope," and then booked it. So that was awesome.
Right. That's one thing where when you're playing the handler defense and as a handler, if you're looking, you're continuously just going back and forth with the same two people. When you see what you think is an opportunity to go upfield, sometimes you get a little trigger happy because you're like, okay, finally, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, there's that.
Right.
And Mattis is really good about baiting that. He's really good at giving you that little inch and then
Yep.
taking it from you. And I think that's a great example of that play.
Agreed. Okay, here's another I think just a great point of the game. End of quarter, end of the half, second half. Um, I don't know if I can slow this down. I wish speed normal. Perfect. I'm
Oh,
gonna slow this one down a little bit.
watch you.
This one, Jay and I were talking from last year how the wind chill really focused on like their end of quarter situations and these big hooks. Again, notice there's 4 seconds on the clock. It's the end of the second quarter. And just like where you need to position yourself physically on the field um, for these end quarter hucks, because there's always going to be that tip disc. And where do people need to be in order to catch that eventual tip disc? So I'm just going to let this play out. Shout out Dylan DeClerc. So we got Berglund, classic to Bevon, and Bevon knows he's got to get that throw off, whips it downfield to a cluster at the bottom.
It
Oh,
almost looks
that
like
is
Redder.
perfect.
Can we zoom in?
I mean, I can go big screen, but I don't know if I can zoom in.
Okay. Because watch, that is Redder right there, right?
31? No.
With his arms up, yeah. Is that
I'm
not?
gonna be real.
Oh,
I don't
let me
remember.
pull up the roster.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why?
Number
What?
changes, new
Well,
players.
Yeah.
to me, it almost looks like when he goes up.
Mhm.
I'm not saying he's intentionally hitting it out to declare, but like maybe it almost looks like when he puts his hand up, it's just to get it away from a defender, away
Yeah.
from Pittsburgh.
I think
31
that
is
honestly,
Redder.
there you go. Hey, there you go, Kane. That's probably very likely. I will say, like seeing DeClerc's position and the fact that he has to lay out, like it was unfortunate, and I'll play this again. Like the body placement ended up not being ideal for that tip disc because then obviously DeClerc had to throw his body at it. Is that who is in the back here? Is that Kittleson?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Obviously, this is not fair because we get to analyze it and pause it and slow it down after the fact. Kittleson, if he would have had perfect 2020 forward thinking vision, stays right there, right? He's going to come into the clump and all these players are going to start converging. And it's only because DeClerc kind of hangs back he's on the outside, is he able to make this layout? So watch DeClerc at the bottom of the screen, kind of hangs back. He knows that disc is going to be tipped out. He just doesn't know where. And he's able to make that layout, but really no one else is out there. Like if it's not DeClerc, it's nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really like a contested layout. It wasn't like there was a defender going for it either.
Right. I think it was such a great highlight play. It was again very like vintage, I think Dylan DeClerc and end of quarter situation. It was really cool to see that play out like Jay and I had kind of heard about in practice last year, and where people are positioned on the field and how you need to strategically arrange yourself to get ready for that disc that's going to come out, because how rare is it for someone to come down with it, right? It's almost always tipped, it seems. So
Right.
you get your tall guys, which is why actually now I'm thinking this out loud here. You get your tall guys into the clump, which is why Kittleson went in, because he's probably one of the taller guys with the vertical. So he's the one up there trying to catch it, trying to tip it. So I can see why he went in.
Right.
But right,
I'm
obviously you
just
want
saying,
someone in the back there.
I gotta
would've
double
caught it.
check exactly. You know, with the hindsight, you can say like, oh, he should have stayed there. But who
Oh
was it who
yeah,
caught the tipped disc last season?
it was DeClerc.
No, I'm talking
Like Joel Clutton tip
yeah,
disc.
but Joel Clutton tipped the disc. I think it was like
I don't know who caught
I
it.
don't remember who caught it, but I just like in that clip, you can see he like runs around the stack, like he knows it's coming. So he
Yeah,
does,
yeah,
I think DeClerc might have taken a couple of notes from that, end of quarter, like he's like, actually, no, I'm not gonna do this. This is what lost us
yeah.
that game. So
I agree. I think I'm not gonna like bring it up because I have to find the exact second of it again. But yeah, you can see in that clip, DeClerc hangs back a little bit. He does not go in. He takes a half step back and waits. So that was cool to see.
I want to bring one more point about the defense. I said the offense looked calm, and you guys were talking about how like the defense didn't really have like a ton of standout plays, but they sort of did with their just anytime they got the disc, they capitalized. It felt like, I mean, they didn't get every break chance, but they moved the disc quickly, they were throwing quickly, they were playing like, hey, we're not gonna let you, we're gonna take as much ground back as possible. They weren't necessarily playing to they were always, of course, playing to get the point, but their first goal was get this disc moving away from our end zone. And I think that was a very good play style, and that helped a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the wind chill just do a good job at that mentality. Again, I think that's very. I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Like I feel like that's just their play style, and that's a good thing that we saw that kind of in full effect. It was a great game for that to kind of come to life and introduce some of these new guys to the wind chills style of play. So we got weekend or weekly forecast. So we're kind of doing a new little segment where we just look ahead a little bit to the next week with our weather theme. So for the Minnesota Wind Chill, they have a bye, so we don't have to forecast that. But the Strike versus the Monarchs, again, back at Seafoam Stadium on this upcoming Saturday. I want to say 5 p.m. I've apologized for not having that very easy fact pulled
You
up, but
better
let me
be
look real
there.
fast.
We will be there.
I'm pulling up the
I'm
time.
pretty sure it's 5 p.m.
p.m.
It's actually not. What the heck? It's not even on their website. It just
They
says
don't
the
even
time.
know.
All right. Well, probably 5. Get there at 5. Get there early if you want. Get there at
Get there at
3 o'clock.
4:30.
Yeah,
Yeah, get there at 3. We should tell
Yeah,
you.
5 p.m. It's 5 p.m.
Thank you,
All
Jay.
their home games are 5 p.m.
Perfect. Love that. So yeah, the Milwaukee Monarchs. I think the Monarchs. Let me look this up. They might have already played a game this season, maybe 2.
I think they're done with 2. Yeah, I think they finished 2 already.
So I want to check. They lost against the Gridlock and they lost against the Philadelphia Surge. So they are 0-2. Um, and I guess again, I apologize. We've all been busy, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch the Milwaukee Monarchs last 2 games. I've been busy with the wind chill and strike. But knowing that they're 0-2, and they're away yet again, like I think they've played 2 whole away games now. Um, that's a tough schedule for them. That's a tough start to the season. I know last year they weren't the strongest team, and I think the strike beat them pretty handily. I would expect that to be pretty similar, but again, like I guess I don't know who's on the active roster this week and who's going to be ready to go. I know that can always fluctuate, but I do think the strikes roster is a little bit more consistent than the wind chills. Um, Luckily, I think that will help with their chemistry building and their consistency throughout. Um, Based on what we saw this last week at Seafoam Stadium, like we said earlier in the pod, I have high hopes. I fully expect this to come out with a win. Um, I don't know if we want to do like predictions. I guess again, weekly forecast is totally up in the air because this is our first time doing this. So we can do score predictions, we can do player of the game predictions. I think some of those would be kind of fun. I would love to do something like that.
Sure, let's do it. Whatever, let's do both of those because those are the ones that you said.
Heck yeah. Okay. Kane, score prediction and player of the game.
Score prediction. I'm gonna say is gonna be 14 strike to 9 Monarchs. I think it's gonna be an epic win at home. It's gonna be awesome, and it's gonna be an excellent offensive win led by none other than Mextroth.
Right on.
Nice, nice. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be like 18 strike to like
Hmm.
15 for the Monarchs, and I think Alicia Carr is going to have that big impact, and that's definitely not just recency bias on my interviewing her.
Very nice. Very nice. I'm gonna split you two right in the middle. I'm gonna say I'll say like 15 to 12, maybe. Um, I'll say, you know what? No, I'm gonna say 15 to 11. I'm gonna knock down the Monarchs one. So striker gonna take that. I'm gonna say led by Daniel Byers. Again, these are all assuming everyone's playing this weekend, but I think Daniel Byers is just always that MVP favorite, player of the game favorite.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Speaking of
yeah,
Daniel Byers, Sarah Mextroth, and Alicia Carr, if you guys are listening and want to get on the pod, definitely hit us up. We'd love to have you.
heck yeah. And Emma Poyer, because we talked a lot about Emma Poyer today.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I'm a player you as well.
It's really funny because last season I was like rattling off the names, begging people to come on the pod. Now you
yeah, you're
guys are
slacking.
the
Yeah, I can't
shills.
pick it up.
Yeah, okay, you know what? That's why no one's on the pods because I haven't asked.
That's
Hello,
true.
every single Frisbee player, come on the pod.
Except if you played for the Chicago Union and now play for the LA Aviators.
And your name is. All right, so thank you
Something.
guys for listening to this week's pod.
We will see you on Saturday, May 4th. Come dressed in Star Wars theme as May the 4th be with you. So I don't know if I have anything Star Wars. I'm just gonna come dressed in strike stuff, but do
Oh,
you? What?
I was wondering why you were saying strike stuff or Star
Oh.
Wars stuff. It took me a second, but I got it.
I also want to shout out, or not shout out, but I want to point out that we are going to try to just keep doing mailbags. This week we did send out a mailbag in our email and it's on our social media, but it's tough because we record typically on Sunday nights, the day after wind chill and strike games. Um, so on Sunday mornings, we send out mailbag notifications for everyone to send in their opinions, send in their predictions. We have a couple questions on there. You can answer any and all of them. So go to subscribe to our like newsletter. It's free on our website, or just check out our social media on Sunday morning. We send out a new link. And then we're gonna get your guys' opinions, your thoughts, feelings, everything on the pod too. We want to get your voice in on this. So we did send it out late. I know it's just kind of like the nature of this, but we'd love to hear you. And of course, this episode is presented by the R1P1 Network. Once again, just doing some great stuff in the sports agency, creative world with our Zoom backgrounds, all of our thumbnails and artwork on our social media. We love them so much. They're so great. Go follow them, check them out. And again, we're going to see you on May 4th for the strike game. And I don't know, stay chilly and ka-chow.
Good ciao.
Ciao. Stay chilly.